All right, everyone. This is Rhiannon and Mark.
Hello.
Today. We're looking at the Zoom65, which is really exciting because this is my next kind of special project board since the Ida Bow. So we've got this pretty premium board. We thought it was a pretty good style.
At least the packaging made us think it was extremely nice and professional. But
it did come with a case, and that's nice.
Yeah, the case is really cool, but we'll see that in a second. Right now, Rhiannon's taking out the weight.
And it's very nice. We got a light blue case with rose gold / kind of pink metal accents. So I think it's going to look really cute. I was thinking of cotton candy at the time. And this instruction booklet, warning, it's not the best written, so beware if you get this.
It doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the build specifically.
But yeah, the case is chonky. It is very thick. Look at that. Oh my gosh.
But a lot of the bottom is just foam. Like it's just a lot of like foam padding, I guess.
But it's nice. I think I would be very comfortable carrying this board with this case and no problems.
Yeah.
But
we do have like smaller cases that will probably work just as well. Anyway, we have the coiled cable, braided and coiled.
it does not smell bad.
Did the sniff test?
It's fine. And then let's see, we've got a few different packages of foam here for the inside of the case, and it was actually pretty interesting that it smelled so bad.
Yeah, the foam did smell awful.
Like, I did not expect of all the pieces of the foam to just smell like, I don't know, dead toxic waste.
But this is the PCB. It's got some heavy flex cuts on it.
And the plate does too.
I would even say almost too many flex cuts for a board that I don't know if it has like that much space in there for that heavy of a flex.
Yeah,
so.
that foam we were talking about packed it pretty full. But this is polycarb, right? Or
Yeah.
polycarb plate.
Yeah, it's weird to see a polycarb plate that has even more flex cuts because polycarbs are usually kind of flexy enough by default. That
But look at that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
Jeez.
Oh man. But now we get to the main foam stinky
Oh my god.
attraction.
I put it back in this packaging because it smelled so bad. But it has a bunch of case foam, plate foam, PE foam sheet, and the plate. I already just said the plate foam, but that's okay.
Yeah, and there's this. Is it the PCB foam that's really shitty?
I don't know what you mean.
The the one that we put on top of the PCB and it was flopping
on
all
the
over
bottom
the place.
part?
Yeah, when we were trying to put in
Yeah.
the stabs.
Yeah, it was like kind of sticky, which is
Yeah.
weird.
And then the little knob that is very well packaged.
Yeah, very, very well. And then a titanium WooQ switch puller, which I didn't realize it was titanium, but I looked it up after, and it's very nice. It's very
It
thin,
is.
which helps a lot because if you disassemble keyboards a lot, you'll get a lot of those on the top and bottom layer where your switch puller can't quite reach, and that's a really good one, I will admit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and here's the battery. We decided not to do the battery in this build just because of a few foam issues that we'll go into later, but we decided that it would be not the best. I think you guys could do it if you wanted to, but we decided to leave it out, and we saved it just in case.
Yeah, I think the foam is so packed in tight already that there's almost not really a good amount of room for the battery, and I'd be worried about it like overheating. But I mean, I guess it's up to preference. You'd have to probably remove some of the plate foam to get it working. Also, here's the case, but some of the screws like fell out, which was kind of scary because they're very tiny and we don't want to lose them.
They did have a lot of extras though. For anyone that loses screws easily, they had like an entire pack of extras, especially the standoffs.
Oh yeah,
They had like 10 extra standoffs or something.
there were also a bunch of different types of screws that was kind of confusing because like the ones to screw in the bottom plate or the bottom weight were slightly shorter but the exact same screws as the ones for the top and bottom case. So just keep that in mind if you're building this.
Oh yes. But it's a very nice blue color. These are the stabs that came with it. We decided to use them instead of using the Durox we had, which was a mistake.
Yeah, don't use these stabs. They are very, very rattly and actually cause interference on the space bar. So don't do that. Don't do it. Just trust us.
Just get something else.
They are honestly, I hate to say it, but some of the worst actual screw-in stabs I've ever used. And I mean, they're worse than most plate mount stabs, which is, I mean, that's not a huge deal, but it is pretty impressively bad. But there's the case. It got this nice anodization on it.
Which be careful with, because it chips off extremely easy. You do not want to do too many mods to this board once you screw it in, because you will start chipping that paint.
And here are the keycaps.
And they are the Astrology set. They came in this plastic bag, and the space bar actually was bent pretty significantly. Mark did his magic and heated it up, put a marble wrist rest on top of it, and then finally straightened it out. And here's the plate. We've got the standoffs that I finger tightened, and I think we definitely need these standoffs because of how flexy the plate actually is. I think it would be good to make sure you have those.
Yeah, without that, I feel like this board would just kind of like snap in half at any given moment because of how many flex cuts there are. It's kind of crazy. But the plate foam does align pretty nicely, thankfully.
And that the standoffs help with that too. Like they have holes for the standoffs so you can make sure that that foam is perfectly aligned, which I really appreciated. So what I really like about what came with this board is they included white and black footies, so you can choose whatever looks best with your paint that you selected. I chose
preference, yeah.
Yeah, I chose white because we're going for Cotton Candy Cloud, and it's really cute. And they were really easy to boom put on.
Oh my god, magic.
So Mark got all of our stabs put together, which I really appreciate. And when we screwed them in, we found out that if you can see, the little washer interferes with the hot swap socket.
Yeah, you can't actually screw it all the way in, which seems like a huge design oversight on this.
But what's interesting is they put it in the instructions that would happen. And they were just like, yeah, it's fine. Just screw it until you can't. The hot swap socket can take it.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I mean, it did turn out fine, but it's just weird.
Once we finally got things assembled, it was a little hard to get our stack of the foam and the plate and the PCB and the weird PCB foam. Things just kept falling apart and kind of bending. It was a little hard. And then once we finally got to screwing it together, I had trouble keeping it together. So Mark had to hold it for me while we kind of sandwiched and screwed in.
Yeah, I think if you're doing it solo, you'd have to like hold it at a specific angle to get it just right, and then kind of hope the other screws don't disalign when you screw one side in. But I think it's possible. It's just a lot better to do it with two people.
That's why you should get married.
Yeah, what?
Once we finally got that assembled, we're using this weird semi-sticky foam sheet that goes on the back of the PCB. Now, when you're putting it on, I was extra cautious, but you don't have to be because you can move it pretty easily. But when it was on there for a while, we assembled it and then had to disassemble it for reasons. It actually had stuck on pretty well, so just be aware of that.
And also, it didn't account for the battery slot. On the right side, it's a little raised. I don't know if you can see it, but it didn't actually account for where the battery housing was supposed to plug in, which is really weird.
And once we're ready to put in the switches, we looked at our instruction manual and saw that you can't put them in these red circle spots. And the reason why is that you literally can't screw in this whole complex if you've got switches in there, because the screw holes are actually in between those little switch pairings. And
they would interfere with the edges of the switches, which seems like a really weird design decision and is extremely unique amongst all of the boards that we have. And I don't know if I don't really like that setup.
The specific problem is when we had to disassemble it a few times, you had to take out those, 10 switches every single time. And as we'll show you guys, actually the coloring kept chipping off the more we unscrewed and tried to get switches out, because it's so tight that you do end up chipping or scraping off some paint each time you take switches out. So we were not happy with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of aspects of this board are pretty high quality, but I think like some of the design decisions are just really weird.
Like, it feels like they didn't assemble it themselves before putting it out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think it could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot cleaner, I think. Like after building the QK65, I think this one kind of pales in comparison for ease of build and also just the general quality of the end product, in my opinion.
Plus, you had to keep kind of switching around that stupid thin layer of foam. Like sometimes the switches would mess with it, and sometimes it would get above the stabs, and it was just kind of a nightmare.
I think part of it is because of the overly flex-cutted PCB and plate. Like if they didn't have that, it would have been a little bit easier to have worked with, at least for like the foam, because then it wouldn't have these weird gigantic holes in the middle. So. But I mean, overall, it's still, I think the end product sounded pretty good, but I don't know how much of that it was attributed to the specific amount of flex cuts. Also, because of the orientation of some of the switches, they won't work with cherry profile keycaps, so do keep that in mind.
Now, when we're going to move on to the case, we've got the little gasket sticker pads, and it was really like a puzzle. There's 3 different sizes for these gaskets. You can't really see it in this video, but along the edges, there's like a super long one, and then a super short one, and a super long one, and then a medium one, and it just goes all the way around, and the little pads are pretty hard to get out, as you can see me struggling. But it was interesting. It was fun.
A little, yeah. So yeah, they're hard to see too because of the black on black. But yeah, just a little puzzle.
So now that you can see the finished product without me struggling for 10 minutes, we are going to show you. Well, actually, I'd like to talk about the fact that they did not tell you in the instructions that you should screw in the weight now. They never mentioned the weight, so we had to disassemble it later completely.
And while that could be our fault a little bit, it still probably should be in the instruction manual since the weight is like kind of, it has like their branding and stuff on it, so it's like kind of an important piece of the whole thing, I feel like.
And I trusted the information manual with my life. It also didn't super well explain where these go, but I figured it out because I'm smart.
I'm so proud of you.
Yes. Now, the first time we assembled this, it went relatively smoothly. I think it was really hard to seat the USB into the case. We had a lot of trouble with it.
It was also like you would seat it in there and you would be like, okay, it's good. And then as soon as you look away, it would unseat itself, and it was a huge pain to get back in there once it became unseated.
And it also chipped the paint every single time it kind of unseated itself. It started rubbing against that top part of the hole in the case, and yeah, just scraps of paint everywhere.
Yeah, it's very sloppy. Again, kind of comparing it to the QK. The QK had a very good system for the seating of the USB, having way more real estate than it needs. This board doesn't have that either, especially to accommodate how much flex there is. It's kind of weird to have the USB seated in the center and also not really even have any room for it to flex.
I think another issue that I came across a lot is the stabs they wiggled a lot, and they kind of got in the way of some of the switches, especially I believe it's the enter. The switch seating in there was really tight. It was on its side, so if you bent a pin, it was incredibly hard to get out again.
And also these screws are so close to the edge of the case that they were very annoying to work with as well, as you can probably see the struggle of.
Oh, yeah. Also, something I just remembered is they gave us one of that little Allen wrenches, but we had to deassemble this 3 times, so I gave up and used the wow stick. If you use your wow stick, you have to either angle it away because the screws are so close to the case. You'll start chipping the paint if you have the lip of the wow stick against it. And if you slant it, the screw isn't going in perfectly, so it starts chipping the paint in the screw hole as well. And again, after 3 disassemblies, it was just wrecked. Like, I wish we had footage showing you because it was pretty much stripped down to the layer below the paint.
So, and then on top of all of the other issues that we've had with this board, I just wanted to talk about, we did reassemble it like 3 times because we had to unseat it to be able to fit the USB into the port. We also, again, forgot the weight one time. And then the worst one was when we used the included stabs, mind you, with completely fine DSA profile keycaps, there was interference on the spacebar. Like the stabs wiggled so much that you could actually just touch the edge, because the tolerance of this case is so small that if the spacebar is not touching, then the 5 key up at the top, or like some of the top row keys, will touch the edge of the case. You can see right here, this thing wiggles like crazy, and these stabs are really ticky. We disassembled and then exchanged them for Durox, and they were quite a bit better, but it was just kind of a nightmare.
And also, I think Mark forgot to mention that I did take apart the whole board, put the weight in, and they have, I'd say, maybe 12 case screws in the instructions, and we took inventory. And then I used those case screws to screw in the weight, put the board entirely back together. And then as I was screwing in the last maybe 3, I realized that some of the case screws were shorter than others, and the shorter case screws were meant for the weight. And nowhere did it mention it. And like Mark said at the beginning, the case screws for the weight versus the case screws for the actual PCB screw-in were so minusculely different in size. There was no way. So I had to take apart the board, get the longer case screws from the weight, and then put the board back together.
And also they sit flush on the weight anyway, so it looked like it was totally fine, normal.
I was gonna cry.
It was rough. This was a very difficult build. And so after we've aired all of our grievances, finally we're actually just going to clip straight to the sound test. I don't want you to have to watch us and deassemble this case like 3 times. And we also didn't record it, so it'd be very difficult to show it to you. But all right, here is the sound test.
So after all this pain and suffering and probably 4 hours of work,
oh god,
it turned out really well. I think I would be extremely scared to ever take this board apart again.
Oh yeah, no, I don't ever want to mod this board ever again.
But it looks nice. I really like the keycaps, and I think that looks good with that cute little blue and then the little pink knob. The knob's great. I don't know what I'll use it for, but it's great. And a nice little weight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the end product is good. Also worth noting, the DSA Astrology keycaps kind of suck because there's a lot of imperfections. But I think the board ended pretty well.
Yay!
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.